All right, good evening and welcome to the UNT Dallas Law Panel for students who might be interested in attending law school. And if you would, take a moment and put in our chat for those of you who are on Zoom, why you are thinking about law school and some of the types of questions that you have, because we want to make certain that we have the opportunity and the time to answer all of your questions. My name is Cheryl Watley. I have the honor and privilege of having been one of the founding faculty for UNT Dallas College of Law. UNT Dallas Law School opened its doors in 2014, having been authorized by the state legislature in 2009. It's been a long journey, and we have graduated now 5 classes. We've contributed to the roles of the lawyers in Dallas and other areas of Texas. We have an evening division, which makes us different than any other law school in the Dallas area. So if you're interested in law school, consider our evening program. It is a great opportunity for folks who want to continue on and add law as a second career. Joining me this evening to talk about law school and being lawyers, because they are now graduates. They are alums of UNT Dallas College of Law. So they have obviously gone through the process. They applied to law school, got admitted, attended, graduated, and are now practicing law. So I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves so they can tell you a little bit more about the types of things they have been doing since they got out of law school, as well as where their practice is and things like that. So Mr. Thomas, if we can begin with you, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Wadley. My name is L.D. Thomas, and as Professor Wadley so eloquently described, I am an attorney here. I'm a solo practitioner in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, but I will, as y'all say, I will go where the money resides, okay? So my practice area is estate planning, wills, trust, and probate primarily. Every now and then it'll bleed into a little bit of family law and business associations and formations. And I was a member of the inaugural class, and I was a member of the evening program. I worked the entire time I was in law school, even worked while I studied for the bar exam, took a little bit of an untraditional route, I would say, with that. But glory and thanks be to God, we were able to make it through. And so here we are, very excited to answer any questions that you guys have and hopefully shed some light on the process.
Leslie Dodson.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Dodson. I was a classmate of LD's. We were in the inaugural class. I am in Collin County, but I practice in Dallas, Tarrant, Ellis, Hunt, all of the surrounding counties. My practice area started out as criminal defense, and now it is kind of the whatever walks through the door practice. So I do some family law, some civil cases, and criminal cases as well.
Let me ask both of you, what inspired you to want to become a lawyer? Why was that even a dream for you in the first place? LD, you want to go first?
I will go first. I have an interesting story about that. My mom typically answers that question for me. They ask her, well, why did you go to law school? And she will happily jump in. When I was young and they, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said a lawyer, in my community, you were a preacher, you were a lawyer. We had very limited views in the days of what's successful. I wanted to be a lawyer. And so she asked me one day why I wanted to be a lawyer. And I said, well, because they get to lie and they make a lot of money. And I have found out that neither one of those is necessarily true. But it was a dream of mine. And of course, as I grew and as I matured, I understood the importance of being a lawyer and how you can help individuals, how you can help them, how you can solve problems for them, advocate for people who cannot advocate for themselves. And that was something that carried me all the way through high school. I went to Townview Government and Law Magnet. And so I kind of fell more towards the government side by the time I graduated. And it was the law path was something that kind of went away from me for a while. As a matter of fact, school was done. When I finished undergrad, I didn't want to see another school as long as I lived. Let's all take a moment to laugh. So I then proceeded to get a master's degree and then go back to law school and that whole thing. But along that path, what happens, I got involved with corporate America, and I saw layoffs. I saw people build entire, security, they have their families. Everything is built on this job, their lifestyle built on this job. And just like that, they're laid off, the economy turns down, and they were scrambling. And so the idea of becoming an attorney and the entrepreneurial aspect of opening up my own firm appealed to me, because I felt that as an attorney, whether I went a traditional route, whether I worked for a big firm, whether I stayed and went as general counsel for my firm, for my current corporate job at the time, if something were to happen, having a law license afforded me the opportunity to take care of my family, right? Worst case scenario, I could hang a shingle and figure it out, right? And so that's where the bug bit me again. That desire that I had earlier to be able to advocate and take care of other people transitioned to having a career where I felt like I could always advocate and take care of my family. So it was an up and down journey for me personally to stay committed to that vision of becoming a lawyer. And through various phases of my life, my intrigue and interest in the field varied. And so in different phases, I wanted to be a lawyer for different reasons. But yet, here we are.
Leslie?
I have just always, for as long as I can remember, just wanted to be a lawyer. And I think the reason is the argument. I like the argument. And so it allows, being a lawyer, I'm allowed to just argue whether people agree with my position or not, as long as I'm able to present a solid argument for it. And so I like the things that go into making a solid argument. And so that's just really the main reason I wanted to be a lawyer. I like to argue, and that's what my family and friends will tell you. I don't have anything as profound as LD.
So Benny brought up the fact that he's interested in law school because of a passion for social justice issues. I've been practicing law since 1978. I know none of you in the audience were even born then. It has pretty much become ancient history now. But when I was 9 years old, it was the Birmingham marches. It was Bull Connor releasing police dogs and children being drowned, if you will, by fire hoses, and that water pressure being really streamed on them. And I was a young Black kid growing up in Connecticut, and I couldn't understand it. And I asked my mother what was going on. Why were they attacking those children? Because the kids looked to be about my age. And my mother said it's because they're trying to get the laws changed. And with all of the woeful ignorance and innocence of a 9-year-old, I said, well, if they can bear the fire hoses and the dogs in order to make sure the laws are changed, then I will go to law school and be a lawyer to make sure that everyone knows that the laws have changed. And from that evening on, whenever anybody asked me what I wanted to be, it was, I want to be a lawyer. That was my personal statement in my application for law school, was the very vivid moment where I made that declaration. And I have spent most of my career doing things related to social justice issues. I was a federal prosecutor, then a federal defense attorney, most recently been involved in wrongful convictions. So if you have a passion, try to figure out a way to let it help carry you, because there's nothing about law school or being a lawyer that is easy. And we're beginning to get some, but two things. We're beginning to get some questions about law school, but also getting some questions also about what if you don't know what you want to practice, what area, but you just know you want to help people. Does the law, is being a lawyer good for that?
I would say, honestly, absolutely. There's so many different facets of the law, right? I do probate, estate planning. You guys have talked about criminal law, family law, that sort of thing. And a lot of times you don't know throughout the entire process for sure, well, I want to practice this. I just know that I want to help people and that sort of thing. And I think UNT does a great job of exposing its students to all different facets and areas of law. I have friends that have gone the corporate route and it works for them. It's one of those things, I'm about to show my nerd side. It's like finding your mutant power. You don't know what it's going to be. It just tends to find you, right? You work, things start to gravitate towards you. You take continuing legal education courses to make sure you're up on things. And then you find your interest. You find yourself drawn to a certain area, right? And you find your passion. I remember very vividly in law school having a conversation with Professor Whatley. At the time, I told her that I was interested in real estate and title work. And she looked at me and she said, by God, that sounds boring. Why would anyone choose to do that? She did, and she was serious. But I understand what she does is phenomenal. And there's a rush and you bring your whole full self. And so I can understand why someone would say being a transactional attorney doesn't appeal to them. But I knew what interests me. I'd been a realtor since 2007. So real estate and understanding how a lot of finances and people's wealth is tied up in real estate and it sits there, and to be able to release that and help a family start anew and start a foundation and send their first child to college because now they've been able to sell grandmom's house and pay for that. It's a rush that I understood differently. And so I think having the seed in yourself to want to help people is the best, that's a great foundation. And what you want, what field you want to focus on, it will find you.
I agree with LD because I went to law school with an absolute certainty that I wanted to be a prosecutor. And I have yet to get the badge that the DA's office hands out. I've done everything but prosecute a case. And as for the public interest, even if you find yourself in a practice area that doesn't seem like it would naturally lend itself to public interest or helping at a grassroots level, there's always opportunities out there. For example, I have volunteered to work with the Expunction Expo that Dallas is hosting later this month. So I will be volunteering my time to help citizens expunge their records. So there's always opportunities out there to help people while you can still focus your practice area on something that will keep your lights on.
Absolutely. And I think if I could say one thing, I think sometimes not knowing exactly what you want to do is a blessing, because it affords you an open mind to learn new things and try new things and expose yourself to different things, not just practice areas. Again, I have another Professor Whatley story. Our first year,
roast Professor Whatley night.
Oh gosh, let me tell you, I've just been shaped and molded. Our first year, we had mentor groups, and they wanted to pair you up in, your interest. What are you interested in? So I said, well, I'm interested in government affairs. I'm interested in real estate, mergers, all that stuff, right? And so we get our assignments, and I was assigned to the women's issues group. And listen, women are wonderful. My mother happens to be a woman. And so, but that wasn't the group that I had anticipated. And so I went to Professor Wiley. She's like, oh yeah, no, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. We didn't have a lot of people to do that, so you've been there by yourself. So just be fine. And it worked out famously. I had some amazing dialogue with some amazing individuals. I connected with people who were passionate about that. I became educated. I was paired up with a mentor who became a professor at the university. And so he basically walked me through my entire, he was my mentor my first year and was a professor every year thereafter. And so just being open to those opportunities that I did not choose for myself reaped many multiple benefits.
Thank you. One observation that I wanted to make, because some of you in the chat are saying you want to go into law because it's a helping profession. And I love hearing that, because for all the bad lawyer jokes, for all the sharp comments and all that kind of stuff, when somebody's in trouble, the first thing they say, I need a lawyer. And people go to lawyers when they need help, when they can't do it themselves anymore. So regardless of what area of practice, you're helping people. And I got to tell you, there's really no greater reward than having someone who's gone through either a difficult divorce or perhaps the transition of a parent, or some kind of criminal case that's disrupted the family, and you know that you've been the bridge to help get them from that bad place in their life to a place where they're now ready to move on forward. I find that personally to be very rewarding, even after 40 some years. One of the questions in the chat, which I think is perfect for our students, is how do you manage law school as evening students, right? And LD, I know you worked full time, and Leslie, you had 6 kids and you lived 150 miles away. And so you had like a full-time job. So not just how did you do law school and manage it, but then we've got specific questions about what did you do about getting practical experience and externships in clinics. So if the two of you could talk about that, please.
So I worked a full-time job. I was a manager of a station manager at the post office.
I forgot that. My apologies.
And I did have way too many kids at home. And I live 60 miles away from the law school. So I would leave my house every morning at around 4:30, go to work, and get there by 5:30, 6 o'clock. I would work all day, and then I would walk 3 blocks to the law school. And class was from, I believe, 6 or 6:15 until 10:30, maybe 10:15. Then I would drive an hour home. Didn't see my family very much, didn't see my kids very often, except on the weekends. And then I was having my face stuck in a book because I had a lot of reading to do that I couldn't get done through the week. And it sounds awful and horrible, and every second was absolutely worth it. Because I'm living my dream. So it can be done. It's just like anything else. If you want to do it, you will find a way. You really need to count on the support from your friends and family. If you have children and daycare issues, or you need someone to pick up the kids, or you need to, but it's workable. You just have to be committed and tell yourself that it's your turn to be selfish and take that 4 years for yourself and achieve your goals. And that's what I did. And here I am today.
All right, LD.
I agree. There really is not a way to do it without making a sacrifice. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have friends that I promised brunch to, and by the time I got out of law school, they had moved to New Jersey. So there are things that are going to have to be put on the back burner, brunches and social lives and those sorts of things. But it is a sacrifice that is well worth it. One of the things that worked for me was trying to anticipate things well in advance. Okay, so have a job. If you're going to do an evening program, what's your commute time? Can you get there in time? Do you need to talk to your employer about adjusting your schedule? Because I think the earlier you start having those conversations with people, the better. I don't know what your situation is, maybe you need to look at a job that is more flexible and understanding. It goes back to what Leslie says, how bad do you want it? And how much are you willing to change your current situation to make it work? But you can't, just to be quite honest, you can't do it without sacrifice. I mean, working 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, we were law school Monday through Thursday. And then of course there's reading, there are assignments, there are all of that. Specifically about externships and internships, I think UNT Dallas College of Law does an amazing job of weaving that into the curriculum and it being a requirement. They also have the Community Lawyering Center, which was an excellent opportunity to get some hands-on knowledge and also, right, feed the soul and do those good deeds for the community, but also get some practical experience. For me, because I knew I couldn't spend 2 or 3 whole days a week there, and I hope I don't get anybody in trouble or anything, but I was able to start earlier in the summer, right? So let's spread it out, but you're going to have to get the requirement done. It's one of the things, one about just going to school in general, I think is like a degree does not guarantee you success, whatever degree it is. But going through an educational system and getting a degree, I think it teaches you life skills on how to communicate with individuals and how to problem solve, how to go to the individual in power and say, hey, this is our situation, you know, come up with a solution. I have a job, I can't go there and work for free 3 days a week. Okay, well, can you do weekends for a whole year? Let's be creative and see what you can do to make that happen. So again, be open, be creative, solve the problems, but understand you're going to have to make some sacrifices.
And I think as far as the externships or internships, you know, this is a part-time program for evening students. And so I believe that, you know, full-time work was contemplated in the curriculum design. So there are, you know, if you work with your professors and your advisors, they will help you find some experience that's suitable and that works with your schedule. I was able to do some clinics. The Community Lawyering Center, they were open some Saturdays. I was able to go. The Innocence Clinic was kind of during my day, you know, at school. And so I was able to make it work that way because otherwise I would have struggled trying to juggle the extra ball that's known as the externship.
Yeah,
so don't wait till your last semester to say, I need to figure this out, right?
Yeah, you know, obviously our comments are specific to UNT Dallas College of Law because that's where I teach and where I'm an administrator, and that's certainly the school where they graduated from. We do have an experiential requirement at our law school because we view this point of time from when you enter law school to when you graduate as a transformative journey. You will not look at the world the same way once you've gone through our education and become a lawyer as you did before you entered. And so part of that transformation requires that you actually do things as a lawyer would do. And the poor analogy that I always use is driving a car. You learn the rules of the road before you get the learner's permit. The learner's permit is that you're driving, but you have a supervising driver who was with you, who is monitoring how quickly you put your foot on the accelerator, how you brake, how you merge into traffic, and then you take a test and you can do it on your own. Our clinics and externships are as if you have your learner's permit and you're doing it under the supervision of licensed attorneys. And we thought that kind of experience was so crucial. You wouldn't go from reading the book to driving the car without having had some practice time. And that's what our clinics and externships are. And so because we thought it was so crucial, it is a requirement. But because it's a graduation requirement, we as a school have an obligation to make it doable for all of our students, and that includes our evening division. So for our community lawyering centers, which are general practice law offices located at Ackerd and over at Fraser Courts, we try to embed them in neighborhoods so it's easier for our clients to get to us. And so our students can see the context of our clients' lives. What is it like to live in a neighborhood that's known as a food desert? What is it like to be dependent upon public transportation? We want our students to practice what we call holistic lawyering, which means you understand people don't come in saying, I have an X problem. They come in with problems. And it could be they're going through a divorce that may lead to an eviction, but may be able to qualify for government benefits. You're going to handle all three of those circumstances for your client. But we manage the hours. Leslie mentioned that the clinics, the CLC was open on Saturday. Well, it was also open in the evenings from 6. It's where they would open at 9 o'clock in the morning and they would close at 9 o'clock at night. So evening students could be there, could do hours in the evenings, and they were open on Friday evenings. We work at UNT Dallas College of Law. We work with all of the students to make sure that they have these opportunities. And in addition to the Innocence Clinic and the CLCs, we have a very robust community engagement program, which gets you involved in such things such as the expunction, the expungement expo that Leslie mentioned. We have law students, and unfortunately you have to be a law student to help us, but we have law students who will help interview the applicants for the expunctions. That's helping them learn how to talk to people. That's learning how to ask questions to get information. That's learning how to understand what you need to know in order to fill out the forms. So it's good experience for our students while we're helping a community. We will be helping over 110 people try to obtain expunctions from their records. I mean, that's awesome work for a law student while they're still going through law school. So we try to engage you in all of these activities so that you get the feel of it, right? It's one thing to talk to a person in a conversation, but it's another to have that person look to you for answers and guidance in that conversation. And particularly if that person is older than you are, you got to feel comfortable in that. So how do you manage that? So we have these opportunities for our students because we think that's so critical to learning how to practice law. Let me take y'all back a little ways. All right, LD and Leslie, let's go back to the application process. Remember that, you know, that LSAT, that test?
I do.
You know, remember that thing? How did you go about preparing for or approaching the LSAT? Because everybody's heard nightmare stories about it, right?
Yeah, I will be honest with you. I am probably not the poster child for preparing for the LSAT. I'm just going to be honest with you. This was my experience. I mentioned that my desire to go to law school kind of came out of a distrust for corporate America. And so there was I didn't really know a lot, okay? But I knew I had to take the LSAT. I did very little research on what score I needed, when applications were due. The time that I started to apply for law school or even think about that, UNT was starting to take applications, get ready to open, so on and so forth. So I was like, okay, well, let's do that. What did I get? I got LSAT for Dummies. Literally got LSAT from Dummies from Barnes and Noble, and just to even understand the types of questions and just kind of prepare myself. And I prayed. I mean, I did it. I did the work. And I think I read another book. So it was like 2 books, and the LSAT for Dummies had some practice questions, but I didn't go in deep. They have all types of programs out there that you can take that have worked wonderful for some people that I know. Me, I got a LSAT for Dummies and another book, and I just went through it and I said, God, if this is to be, then I will get what I need to get. And I took the test, didn't even know what it was that I needed to get, but I took it, and then I applied to law school. And for me, again, it was my ignorance showing. UNT at the time said that they had a rolling admission, so there wasn't a cutoff date. So I was like, okay, this is great. Okay, I'll send it in. Yeah, when I get all my stuff, get it sent in. And I sent it in, and oh my God, what's used to be over admissions?
Dean James?
No, worked with Dean James.
Sheena Brooks?
Tina,
Yeah, Sheena Brooks. So Sheena calls me And she's like, oh, you look great. You know, your application looks great, da, 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 da. But we're going to, you know, we can't really offer you admissions at this time. I said, are they closed? I said, I looked at the site, it said rolling admissions. She said, yes, we do have rolling admissions. That's why we looked at your application, but we only have a certain number of seats, sir. So, and we have sent out our first round of, you know, requests and acceptance letters. Now, if someone doesn't accept and a space opens, your application looks like a great fit. So I say, don't be me, right? Don't be this guy. Do more research. Don't put yourself in that position to have anxiety. You can be the greatest applicant in the world, but make sure you get your stuff in early, you know, so that you can be part of that first acceptance. Do your research on what's a great score for any of the schools that you want to attend, and do your best to achieve that score. Set a goal for yourself. Don't just don't go willy-nilly like I did. It's not the way to go.
The LSAT is a test unlike any other standardized test you have ever taken or will ever take.
It's
It
weird,
has
right?
absolutely nothing to do with the element of, you know, criminal negligence or, you know, the statute of limitations, nothing that you would equate with law school. But it is, I believe it's designed to test your stamina if you can stick with it, and also to kind of start you on a different way of thinking, because it is true what they say, lawyers just think differently than other people. And so the bulk of the LSAT is the logic section, and that is just a different way of thinking or problem solving. And so when you're asking how to study for the LSAT, I would say that if you were successful in high school and you are successful in your undergrad, you know, don't completely overhaul your study habits, but just give yourself a little additional time. Don't do like LD and myself and wait until the 11th hour, because it's not like taking the STAR test or the TAKS test where it's math, reading, you know, things that you intuitively know. It's just a different way of thinking. So I would maybe start studying a little bit earlier and space it out, because it's too much to do in 2 weeks. It's you need to kind of pace yourself with it. But it's, you know, 4 hours of your life, and then you'll get into the law school of your dreams, and you'll be on a panel, you know, a few years from now talking about it.
On a panel talking about your experience as a graduate with the JD behind your name. I want to encourage you to please continue putting questions into the chat. We've got 2 folks here who've recently gone through law school who can probably give you some more up-to-date information on how to manage all of the obligations that you have. I want to take a moment to talk about the LSAT because, you know, it's pretty bad. I took the LSAT over 43 years ago, and I remember it was a nightmare. There was an experimental series of questions that they put on. They weren't going to count, but they were testing you. And it was a 3-dimensional graph. And you were supposed to analyze something using this 3-dimensional graph. And I walked out screaming, I want to go to law school. I don't want to be an engineer. This is why I want to go to law school. I hate numbers. I hate graphs. And so it can leave, unfortunately, a lifelong impression. So I want to give a little bit of a plug here. The law school is working with the undergraduate campus in offering students a course called What? Like It's Hard, Getting into Law School. And in that course, which is offered this semester, next spring semester, and then fall of 2022. So we have 2 more semesters that it will be offered for sure on your campus. We talk about how to get into law school. And we really talk about some of the what, is called the psychological inhibitors. Some of those things that kind of get in your brain and keep twirling around that you may not even realize are there, that make you kind of anxious and nervous about the LSAT, about success. There's this thing called imposter syndrome that a lot of people of color, even successful, even achieving, who kind of always over their shoulder, okay, do they think I don't belong? Do they think I'm not legitimate? And what questions are they asking about me? Because we still wonder, are we an imposter? Are we like the exception? And it really can hold those kinds of things going on in the back of your brain, particularly when you're taking tests, standardized tests, things like the bar exam, all of those things that we may not even be aware of can really become obstacles. And so we address all of these things in this course. It's currently taught by Professor Jan Cunningham, and it's a CJUS number, so it's done through the Criminal Justice Department. We tackle a lot of things in that course. We have obviously, strategies for taking the LSAT. We have some symposium by the admissions officers from Texas A&M, SMU, and UNT Dallas. We have classes where we talk about the application process and have you write your personal statement. There's writing exercises. We have a writing professor from UNT Dallas College of Law who works with this course as well. We actually do a case study of a wrongful conviction of a gentleman who was prosecuted out of Dallas County and who was exonerated after about 15 years of wrongful incarceration and or parole, wrongfully under a label of a convict of having been convicted of murder. So great question, and Stan, it's good to see that you're here. I was mentioning earlier that I should have reached out to you because of your position with the Pre-Law Society. But that's a great segue. LD and Leslie, how much writing? Let's talk about writing.
Yeah.
Because writing for lawyers is different.
Yeah.
How so, and how do you do that? How do you learn that?
Well, you first start by forgetting everything you ever thought you knew about how to write and how to communicate. Be prepared to be broken down into your lowest common denominator, and also be prepared to be built back up. What's so different is, I think a lot of times for me, I used to try to impress people with these wonderful words and paint this gorgeous picture with my paragraphs. It is not creative writing. It is simple, short words. You really have to consider your audience as far as a judge and other attorneys and other people who are reading your document amongst hundreds of other documents throughout the day. Get to the point, yet be persuasive and succinct and organized and grammatically correct. You are representing not only yourself, your client, your image, your professionalism. You are what you say. You are what you eat. You are what you write in this profession, and so it's very, very serious. It's taken extremely seriously. There are entire formulas, IRAC, and all of those things that are used to help you communicate your point in a way that is sufficient for the profession. And it is not taught anywhere but law school.
Well, I agree that it's a different type of writing. I kind of tend to adhere to the less is more, because just because you're allowed to write 25 pages in your brief doesn't mean that the court wants to read 25 pages. But sometimes it takes all 25 pages to succinctly list your points and develop your arguments. So law school, again, I can only speak for UNT, Dallas College of Law. We did a lot of writing. We had writing classes. We had all kinds of resources to help us with writing because it is a very important part. I mean, you have to be able to write well to pass the bar. There's, well, I don't know what the new test format is, but there's 10 or 12 essays. And that is a large portion of your score in the bar exam. And so if you can't make it past the bar exam, the essay section, then, you know, I guess the rest of it is moot. You won't be writing for the court, but there is a lot of reading, there is a lot of writing. And the way to manage it is to just not to fall behind, just do your daily assignments daily. If you have a week or 2 weeks to put together your appellate brief or whatever your writing assignment is, kind of spread it out over the 2 weeks. Don't do like me and wait till day 13. You need to kind of pace yourself and stay current. And that's best advice I have for getting through law school, especially while working a full-time job, you know, in the night program.
Yeah, the writing is a lot of what we do. That is how we communicate. And so you will have writing assignments, even if it's just essay exams. The rule of thumb, because we're getting some questions about like how much reading and how much writing and how long does it take. The rule of the ABA, all law schools are governed by the American Bar Association, and it sets out the rules that the law schools have to meet. And professors, for every hour that you are in class, they are supposed to assign a minimum of 2 outside hours for reading and homework. So if you have a class that meets 3 times a week, that means you're supposed to be spending at least 9 hours a week on that course. And if you're taking 4 courses, that means 30, a minimum. That doesn't mean that's all it's going to take, but a minimum of 36 hours. And it actually will be a lot more than that. So that's what you need to kind of have in your mind that you'll have going on. I really encourage anyone who has like specific questions in terms of various disabilities and what have you to talk with the admissions recruiting personnel about that. At our law school, it would be the director, Miguel Hernandez, because that becomes a very individualized determination. Every law school is required to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and accommodations are provided. Frequently, you know, ADHD or AD or what is the other one I'm trying to say? ADHD and ADD, excuse me, ADD. You know, students regularly get accommodations. You know, if it's an hour-long quiz or test, that student might be given an accommodation of an hour and a half. But there's a number of procedures that have to be followed in order for those accommodations to be given. You know, how to manage mental health. That is a real, Veronica, are you on? I see your box. I don't know, but I don't know if you're actually on.
I'm on. I just can't start the video.
Okay, so we have a question about how do you manage mental health in law school?
I mean, I can talk about that.
Would you like to, so joining us now, what year did you graduate, Veronica?
The end of 2019, December 2019.
Okay, December 2019 is Veronica Lockett, who was, you know.
I had a mental meltdown in law school.
No, I wasn't. That's not what I was going to say.
Oh,
go ahead. I mean,
just putting it out there though. I did. I did. I had a mental meltdown in law school. At one point, I went. It was in my first semester of law school. I laid down in the floor in Dean Rabinowicz's office because I was extremely stressed out. I had 2 children. I was in the Dallas area by myself with my kids. My ex-husband was financially supportive, but he was in a whole nother state working. I I started law school homeless. I had housing, but it fell through. And so I just remember like my first 3 weeks of law school, I was trying to get the kids enrolled. So that was hard because I had them enrolled in Fort Worth, and then the housing didn't go through. So I had to unenroll them. Then I had to figure out how to enroll them as homeless children, what documentation was required. I couldn't pay attention in contracts, which was the class I kept missing or coming too late because of trying to get the children enrolled, trying to find an apartment earlier in the day. And it was a hassle. So my first semester, I didn't end very well. I think I ended with like a 2.23 or something like that. And so the second semester, I had to sign like this form that said that if I didn't pass the semester, I think with like a 2.3 or better, that I would have to drop out of law school. And so for me, that was really frustrating because I had left Houston. I had left a job where I was making, good money to take care of my children. And I had packed up my stuff and moved and taken my kids out of schools where they were familiar. And, so that added stress to law school on top of, because I couldn't pay very much attention in contracts or torts. I sometimes didn't know what was going on in other classes. Like contracts and torts are like your foundational courses to everything else. And I think in property, one day something clicked that I learned in contracts, right? And I was like, oh, that's what he was talking about. But the way I chose to deal with all that was going on with me, Dean Rabinowitz and I finally found me a therapist because like I was having heavy heart palpitations. I was crying. I was angry. And sometimes verbally that anger came out. I lashed out at teachers, at professors. I lashed out sometimes at Dean Rabinowitz, although all he did was smile. And I started going to therapy. I eventually started seeing a psychiatrist for anxiety medication, which I still take to this day. And I am still in therapy occasionally because life does get stressful. So it's not something that I just needed to do in law school. I realized that it's something that I've had to continue doing. But once I got that emotion under control and I felt like I could manage things, law school became easier. I was able to focus. And obviously I finished.
Yes, obviously, we're very, very proud of Veronica. And one of the things that I think her testimony, I believe, shows is that at UNT Dallas, we're committed to the student's success. And we will do anything that we can. We actually have full-time counselor associated with the law school. We work with our students, but then we also encourage a lot of stress relief. We encourage self-care. We encourage, mindfulness. We encourage the kind of nutrition and going out and, we used to have a jogging club. I'm sure COVID has killed that. But there are things that we actively encourage our students to do to help manage stress, because the reality of it is that lawyering is a very stressful profession. One of the questions on the chat was, do you work as hard once you become a lawyer or something like that? And I can only speak from my personal experience, and that is, I work all the time. I worked as a law student, I work as a lawyer, and I work now as a law professor. But I'm fortunate because it's what I love doing. If you're not sure about law school, if you're not sure you really want to be a lawyer, and you're not sure you really want to apply yourself, then don't go to law school. Just figure out another way. They have programs now that are called Masters of Legal Studies. Get one of those master's programs before you go to the JD in law school if you're not at all certain, because it will require a lot out of you.
And I will say that, yes, you do work as hard. So I recently took a case pro bono. It was from the Houston Volunteer Lawyers Program. And it was a divorce case, and it seemed like a really simple case, right? It was a husband and a wife, no children were involved, no assets were involved. So I should say there were two assets. It was, 401ks, right? But they weren't like large 401ks, right? There's vehicles involved, but it's very clear it's very clear what they wanted. But the fight was over these 401ks. And as I was adding up my hours, I spent 118 hours on this case. And the client, was very needy emotionally. And I think that once so getting through law school is one thing, right? You learn like the theory behind it, but when you actually get out there and you put it into practice, and I come from a social work background, you got to really learn how to manage the client. And so for me, it's a struggle to balance like being an attorney and being a social worker, and how much do I give this person as an attorney? And so sometimes I found myself on the phone with her till 11 o'clock at night, right? She'd call me at like 9, and I'd be like, yeah, what's up? As though I don't have to go to bed, So I think you have to like manage the client's expectation, because she didn't care that I had a full-time job. All she wanted to talk about was, everything that her husband had done to her during the marriage. And so you got to manage that client's expectation. You've got to, and they want answers, right? So you've got to know the answers. You've got to know where to go find the answer, And so, yeah, you work just as hard as a lawyer as you do in law school. And I felt some of the same emotions that I felt in law school every time I got on the phone with this girl, with the client. So it doesn't let up, but I learned a lot. It was fun,
I want to make sure that, thank you, Veronica. I want to make sure that I've addressed the questions that are in the chat. And there was one question that asked about what should you focus on in terms of getting into law school. Well, obviously grades matter. We've talked about writing ability. I want to talk just a moment about the application. It was my privilege to serve for 5 years as the chairperson of the faculty admissions committee at UNT Dallas. And the one piece of advice I have, make sure you develop a relationship with faculty members, your professors, who can write good letters of recommendation for you. There is nothing sadder than getting a letter from a professor that says, Jane Smith was in my class, she sat in the middle row, and I really don't know much more about her. That is so disappointing. That student is relying upon the faculty member to give insight and to provide information. So start developing relationships with your professors. If you're in a class, go visit with them, email them, do follow-up questions, show them that you're interested in the subject matter, because you want them to be able to, number one, remember who you are, because that's always a good thing. I've actually read a letter of recommendation when the person goes, I'm not really sure who this student is. At which point I'm angry with the professor for having even said yes to writing the letter, but that's a whole nother issue. So that that the professor knows how passionate you are about wanting to go to law school, is familiar with the work that you've done, who can speak to your grit, your determination and focus, and your application of your skills and talents to a challenge or an assignment, because recommendations do matter. And while a recommendation may not in and of itself, it's not like pulling strings. It's not like there's a magic name associated with a recommendation, but boy, a bad recommendation can torpedo an application, and a good one can carry you over if you need that kind of assistance. So the question about the personal letter, I'm going to assume is the personal statement. And we do talk about in the course, another plug, we do talk about the personal statement in the course. It's hard. you want it to be a statement that shows and kind of exemplifies who you are. Are there challenges that you've had? Is there some type of obstacle that you've had to face? You know, one thing I really want to tell you, don't just pick out a quote. I mean, I think one year, every undergraduate school in America must have told people, if you want to apply to law school, start your personal statement with a quote. And you could see that everybody went to quotes online and pulled out a quote and then tried to figure out a way to make it relevant. And it didn't always relate. If there's a quote that makes you passionate, you know, I love Maya Angelou. I can give you Maya Angelou quotes, and, you know, I could start out a personal statement, and still I rise. And my whole thing will be about that. But it would be crazy for somebody else to use that who doesn't understand the significance of it. And you say, oh, it's Maya Angelou, so they'll think I'm really cool and great because I have this poet that I've quoted on my paper. Make sure it's your voice, although in their words. LD or Leslie or Veronica, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think the personal statement is difficult to write because most of us are conditioned to not brag about ourselves. Most of us, except for LD, who does very well. But it's a challenge to brag about yourself or speak about all of the great things that you have done and can do. And so for me, that personal statement was difficult. I'm sure LD had a different experience, or he faked it till he made it.
That's probably going to be the name of my book. But my advice is actually generic. You know, whatever you write, if you're writing about a challenge, if you're writing about something, a quote that does resonate with you, just proofread it. Grammar is important, right? So it's whatever you're writing,
Typos?
make sure that it is typos, you know, just make sure that it is grammatically correct. If you're going to use a turn of phrase, make sure it's proper, right? You'll be surprised how many things are misquoted in our everyday vernacular. So just pay attention to the details. So I'm not going to give any advice on the creativity of it, but the foundation of it is you know, again, because this is law school. We had a whole conversation about being able to write. This is your first opportunity to show them that you can write. Know when to use it's with an apostrophe and it's without an apostrophe. Know not to ever use an apostrophe to pluralize things. You know, just grammar. Grammar is important. That's my 2 cents.
Veronica, do you have anything you want to add to that how you write the personal statement?
No, I mean, I think LD, you know, summed it up. You know, I mean, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I know, Arthur, you've been kind of following the chat and the questions. Have I missed anything, or is there one out there that we haven't addressed?
Oh, I know that we had some in the Q&A as well, and there was one that was addressed as it relates
I
to.
thought that I had answered those as well. How time consuming or draining?
Yes, you did. So we are good to go.
It is time consuming. And I will tell you, talk about draining. I spent a large part of my career as a federal criminal defense lawyer. And when you're a criminal defense lawyer, you go to trial. At least for me, when I went to trial, I truly believed in the innocence of my client. And I always took on this responsibility of that I should somehow be able to get the jury to see my client in the same light that I did. And when the jury came back guilty, which in our criminal justice system happens very frequently, I would go to bed for the night. My kids would know that they had to fix their own dinner. I'm literally in the bed with the covers over my head going, you know, it had to be me. It couldn't have been the case. I somehow didn't do something right. There's a question I didn't ask, an argument I didn't make. Somehow I had failed. Even when the jury came up and asked me for my business card, after they found my client guilty, saying, if I'm ever in trouble, I want you to be my lawyer. I still felt that I had somehow been inadequate in my representation. So can it be draining? It can be draining just because of workload. It can be draining because of your own psyche. And I now wonder if I went through that because of this imposter syndrome, always wondering whether or not I was good enough, all of those kinds of things. It's very ironic because I put kids through college by being a trial lawyer. I mean, a trial lawyer is what I've been for 40 plus years. So the idea that it would so, what's the word, devastate me that I have to go put covers over my head is really kind of amusing. Question about scholarships. So at UNT Dallas College of Law, we are really, really committed to keeping tuition as low as possible. We have, I believe, the lowest tuition, law school tuition in the state. There are some scholarships that are available. They are awarded through the law school and the admissions office. So the answer to that is yes, there's some, but our primary focus is on trying to keep the law school affordable for everybody. Any other questions? Well, in case you couldn't tell, I think we're all passionate about being lawyers. I think we're all excited that we have been given the privilege of trying to help people navigate some problems and circumstances and situations that are causing them trouble. It's a wonderful profession, a wonderful opportunity. Do you all have closing remarks as we kind of bring this to an end?
I'll say one, thank you guys for this opportunity. Thank you for joining us and listening to us talk. I hope we were able to impart something that helped you along your path and hopefully encourage you to join this profession. For all its work, for all its draining, all its ups and downs, it is a very rewarding profession. And for many of us, myself included, it's the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. It's given me friends for life. It's given me wonderful things to talk about at cocktail parties. It has given me a profession that will allow me to continue to grow and learn for the rest of my life. It is a phenomenal path should you choose to accept it, right? It is not a mission impossible, but should you choose to accept it, it is a phenomenal path. It's as rewarding as it is hard. So good luck to you all.
Leslie?
Again, like LD said, this is my lifelong dream to be an attorney. I would encourage all of the students that are considering law school to do a little research. Don't over research because I think that makes it worse sometimes. But as much as we struggled and complained throughout law school, we were able to develop lifelong friendships. I mean, I talk to LD at least once a month, and I do not respect boundaries. I call them at 9 o'clock at night if I have a pressing question. You know, and the group of students that I graduated with, we're all pretty close knit. We refer out to each other, we call each other, we socialize, we help. And so, you know, I think it's a wonderful fraternal system that we've developed, and I would encourage you all to consider the profession. It's a great profession, and for the most part, other attorneys are honored to help new attorneys along the way. I certainly am. I feel honored every time someone calls me and asks me how to do something. So it makes me feel important and get past my imposter syndrome. So,
Veronica?
I don't have any closing remarks. I mean, I do appreciate you guys calling upon me, and I'm sorry I was late. But I mean, I think that Leslie and LD, sum it up beautifully. And just remember that, um, you know, law school doesn't have to be hard, you know. Um, that's not to say it's not going to be difficult, but it doesn't have to be hard, you know. And I think that if you, like Professor Wadley says, make sure that you build a relationship with your professors. And as Leslie and LD talk about, build relationships with your classmates. I think it makes it easier for you to get through.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the things that we like to think is a strength at UNT Dallas is that we encourage our students to collaborate, to work with each other. You hear these nightmare stories of law schools where pages are torn out of books or things are hidden, a resource is hidden so no one else can find it. We don't have a student body that is fighting each other for grades. Everybody is independent. Everybody gets their own grade. Your work is graded on its own merit. And our students have, at least from what I've been able to see, developed a great network, a great student support system that goes well beyond graduation. So that question that talked about mental health, I think our atmosphere, I think the fact that we try, at least as faculty, to be accessible, as well as the fact that students are encouraged to be in study groups and to work together, also helps with some of that stress and strain. I mean, it's easier to acknowledge that you missed that point in that class if it's your regular study group and it's somebody that you've developed a relationship with. You know, I want to impress upon you, everyone who's listening, because we're getting more questions about how do you juggle it all? You know, can you still be active in your church or in your community organizations and things like that? And you may have to cut back a little bit while you're in law school, but that doesn't mean that you don't get to kind of reclaim them and reprioritize outside activities in your life once you've passed the bar and you're practicing law. You'll be in a different stage of life and you'll have other responsibilities, but it's like everything else. I think we find time in our lives to do that which is important to us. Am I missing something here, guys? I mean, can you do other things other than practice law?
Other than practice law, or in law school, or out, or once you graduate?
I'm saying after law school. You may have to cut it back, and during law school, you may have to cut back on things because it's much more demanding if you're working and school. School is an add-on. But if you're practicing as your full-time job,
I think you would want to. I think being a well-rounded individual will serve you and your clients immensely. One, I've been lucky and I found mentors, and I hope listen, there are different types of lawyers, just that there are different types of doctors, okay? There are some lawyers who all they think about, all they can talk about is the law. They go to a party, it's the latest ruling, it's the this, it's the that. It's, they literally have I'm a lawyer on the chest, and they only date other lawyers. That's them, and that is not me, right? That is not me. I am a lawyer. I'm very happy to be a lawyer, but that is one facet of me. Especially as a solo practitioner, it is important for me to step outside of that and interact with people at church or people in some type of activity league to get clients, to let them know that I exist, right? It's also good, going back to what you said, for my mental health, to take a break and recalibrate and re-energize myself so that I could bring my full self to work for my clients. So not only do I think it's possible to have a life outside of the legal profession, I think it's necessary. Again, there are ancillary benefits to being a well-rounded individual outside of just being a lawyer. Go on a trip, go somewhere, have a margarita with a friend you haven't seen, you know, just do that. Go to an art show, and who knows what you'll experience, and if you're a trial lawyer, will be something that you can incorporate into a closing argument, you know, but have a life, because you'll need that to connect with other people.
Leslie or Veronica, do you have anything before we sign off to add?
No, I
Yeah.
think LD summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Cause I don't like to talk about the law.
And and some of the funniest things are that people go about like, I have very few friends who are lawyers. Because
Yeah.
that's not the conversation I want to have, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But not only that, you find that my neighbor does this to me all the time. She wants to argue with me about the law. And I just listen. I have no comment.
But one thing, if you, I think this is right. When you get the letter admitting you to law school and you start telling people you're going to law school, all of a sudden you're going to have people asking you questions. But what about, or can they do this? Or they told me this, is that right? Do I have a lawsuit?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Yep.
You're gonna be
Or
part
you
of
say
that
it depends.
circle.
Yeah.
It depends.
Depends.
All right, really ask that you take the survey. Mr. Lumsey has posted the link to a survey. We ask that you take that. We really want to make sure that we're providing information that is of value and helpful. And so we thank you for being with us this evening. We thank you for your time, and we thank you for allowing us to talk to you about becoming a lawyer, going to law school, becoming a lawyer, and joining the practice of law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.